Welcome to Brazos Matters. I'm Jay Sokol. Big show today. Arguably one of the best known and most beloved figures in the Brazos Valley is in the guest chair, longtime KBTX TV chief meteorologist Shel Winkley. How are you doing, Shel?
Sorry, I'm not Rusty Surratt. You led me up to being the biggest, and I assume people thought Rusty would be here.
People are like, oh boy. Oh,
yeah.
It's just Shel. I'm
good. I am unemployed.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
But I also wanted to say that in the studio today is KAMU student content contributor Rochelle Martins. Rochelle, how are you?
Good. I'm really happy to be here. I'm very, very excited.
I'm glad you're here too. Okay, so today's show is largely unscripted, mostly because I think our collective curiosities and just the topics of interest will do all the work for us. But let's start with this. You already alluded to it. You just ended your career with KBTX. Why? And what's next?
Almost 15 years. I interned at KBTX when I was in school here at A&M from 2004 or 5 to 2007. I came back to KBTX in 2009 to be on Brazos Valley This Morning with a very dear friend, Barbara Smith.
Right.
Yes.
Friend of KAMU.
Yes. Got the chief gig in 2013. I've been collecting dust since. And then, as of April 25th, it was my last day. So can we back up a second and I think give you a story to why doing what I'm doing? Obviously, I have learned so much professionally, personally. One of the first big lessons that I learned when I was chief meteorologist, you may remember if you've been around the Brazos Valley for a long time, it was like February 2014 or so. And there was this very small ice event. The forecast was right. I want to put that on the record.
Okay.
We did not communicate it well. So we knew that there would only be a few hundredths to maybe, not even a tenth of an inch of ice. Mm-hmm. So the message that night was, you have to go to home. You have to go to work. You have to go to school. Sorry. And that ice really came together at 7 a.m. So right as everybody was going to work and going to school. And when I tell you that this town was full of nothing but accidents, like cars were backed up on Welburn, on Texas, on 6, and the messages and the emails and the phone calls of like, you need to fire this guy. He is the worst meteorologist.
Oh, no.
So from that moment, I learned, that was probably my first moment, that one, my words carried a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. And two, communication is incredibly important when it comes to forecasting the weather. You can have a perfect forecast, but if nobody understands it or it is understood in the wrong way, then it's a terrible forecast. So all that being said, as I've forecasted the weather for the Brazos Valley, I have seen the changes that have happened here locally. I've seen the changes that have happened across the state of Texas. When I first got here, we didn't have a lot of severe weather. Now every spring, it seems like we have massive hailstorms, and we get a lot more supercell storms that can create tornadoes and large hail, baseball-sized hail. We've seen the effects of 2 historically hot summers, right? So I think that there is a big story and an understanding of how the climate has changed and how the climate works into the weather story here in the Brazos Valley, here in the state of Texas. And again, the communication factor of that, because it is a big topic that I think we all need to understand very quickly. That's important. So the longest answer ever. My new role is with a nonprofit called Climate Central. What they do a lot of different facets when it comes to climate work, but one of their big resources that they provide to meteorologists and to journalists across the country is breaking down that climate data to a local level. Because I can tell you that the planet is warming and that all of this is happening with climate change. But it's really hard to grasp until you can understand it, where it's affecting you most, at your home. So my job is going to be working with meteorologists and journalists across the country and internationally, working to better communicate climate change, better understand the science that goes with it, particularly attribution science. So we can now say that we know that today is just a warm day because it's a warm day, or we know that today was made many times more warm because of a fingerprint of climate change inside of that. So understanding that science and identifying where it relates to the stories that are being told in local communities.
So data-driven work.
Exactly.
Okay. So what does that look like? Like, give me an example of the kind of feedback that you as a meteorologist here might get from that nonprofit.
So let's say let's take something recent. Mardi Gras came and passed, and you may have noticed that a very big staple that you love around Mardi Gras is tiny little things that look like lobsters that are called crawfish, mud bugs.
Yep.
We didn't have those this year. And when we finally got them, they were like $10 a pound, and they weren't that great. The crawfish supply was hit hard by the summer and the drought last year, especially in Louisiana and the summer heat. And then what crawfish made it through the summer were hit hard by the big drastic freeze that we had during the winter. So something that everybody knows and loves, but we didn't get much of this year, if any, has a direct tie to a changing climate. That's not to say that crawfish are going to be gone forever, but these are some of those impacts that are being seen and felt because of climate. So this organization helps meteorologists when we're talking about those changes and what led to something that is impacting people locally. They're there to support them with the data and with the science and to give basically just a full view of what's happening.
So that information might be shared with your peers down in the South, maybe not as much with folks in the North.
Correct. Okay. So it's a way of just, again, using that data to bring it to all aspects of the country. And again, I'm going to get to work with people across the globe trying to tackle this problem.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you think that using that in your work as a meteorologist inspired you to change your career path and work towards something that brings more awareness to climate change?
Absolutely. I think that this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. And, I talk so much about communication because that has been my job for almost 20 years since I've been in broadcast meteorology. And I think that a lot of just the negativity around it and the discord around it can be made better by better communicating with each other. I love forecasting the weather. I have loved being here for the big storms. But again, it seems like not every single time, but a lot of times when we have weather events locally recently, they've seemed to be a catastrophe in some way, right? It doesn't just rain anymore. It rains a lot, and then it doesn't rain for a very long time. We don't just get a storm anymore. We get big wind or big severe weather. So I think just over my time growing as a meteorologist and now being able to better identify what isn't a normal weather pattern and what is amplified because of a climate aspect, I think that is what has driven me to this. And I was hired to do weather. Like my main job was to forecast the weather for you. Sometimes there were big climate stories that I wanted to either put on our website or to do social media posts or put on TV, but I couldn't do it because the weather took precedent, right? I can't tell you that, hey, scientists, we knew that last year was going to be the warmest year of record. And then when the data was finally solidified, well, that report came out at the same time that Texas was in the middle of a week-long freeze and we had sleet on the ground. So that's part of that communication aspect. Not that you're hiding it and not that freeze means that we didn't have a warmer world, because that freeze kind of has a climate change aspect to it too. But the weather was slowing me down from being able to tell that climate story more.
So if we flash back to February of 2022, The Atlantic ran an article called "The One Group of People Americans Actually Trust on Climate Science." And you were the main feature of that very long article. Clearly it's a passion and concern for you, but why should this matter to everybody here? Beyond mud bugs,
right?
Why should we care about it?
Because this is your home. This is what we only get one, right? Even though Elon Musk promises that one day we're going to end up on Mars, I don't think we should just toss this planet aside and be like, all right, on to the next one. It impacts everybody, and maybe we all don't see those impacts equally. Look at other parts of the world who don't have the resources and the benefits that we do here in the United States, and they're not some of the ones that contributed to a lot of this climate change, but they're the ones that are feeling the impacts, right? This is touching everybody. If you don't think that it's impacted you, it has, and it will continue to impact you. So we kind of have to act as soon as we can. And the other thing about it too, I think about when I was a kid. Remember the hole in the ozone layer?
Oh, sure.
And we all came together and we said, yeah, we should probably stop doing the things that are making this a situation. I think that as technology gets better, we were always under this guise that we can always do better and dream bigger and make life better for everybody, right? Like that's the American dream and the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we should just stop because we know we have one way of producing energy or being mobile or doing things the way we've always done, when we have the technology to do it better, do it cleaner, and do it for the generations to come after us.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting that you point out, because I've had a ton of conversations, even with my parents, about this is a generational issue. It just keeps being passed down. So one of the questions I have, for me, I think this is very, very important, because I am the new generation that's going to be graduating and taking on these issues. What would you recommend us, things that are practical that we can do to help mitigate climate change? Because I feel like we talk a lot about let's do this, but things don't get implemented as well as I think we want them to.
Right. And that is a hard question, right? Because you're looking as one human being on this entire big earth. The biggest thing you can do is to be active in your community. The city of College Station recently planted a bunch of trees as part of their mitigation to combat urban heat island effect. So volunteering and putting more green space in your communities is a good thing. If you have the means to be able to produce solar on your rooftop, do that as well, but not everybody does. But maybe it's as simple as learning to turn the lights off and saving water and things like that. I think ultimately it comes down to the little things you can do that just feel like they are helping the earth, planting gardens, recycling. But on the bigger aspect of it, it also comes down to voting with your dollars and just voting for the people that you want to see make the change as well. To that aspect, really quick, a lot of people think that this is a political topic, and it has been made a political topic. But again, it touches all of us, and it shouldn't be, because even if you don't agree politically, we all agree that we like breathing.
Yeah.
We all like water. We all like not being hot in 1,000,000 degrees heat index. So I think that's how we can come together essentially as a community and do community-based actions.
Yeah.
So A&M has this long history, I think, of producing television meteorologists. Names that come to mind are like David Finfrock and Rebecca Miller, Orlin Sidney, Travis Herzog, and on and on. And meteorologists, I'm guessing, for a lot of other industries too. So I want to know who the TV meteorologist GOAT is, in your opinion.
David Finfrock.
Really?
Yes.
Finfrock's the one.
David Finfrock, and there's also a meteorologist who's still on TV today named John Robinson in Lubbock, Texas, at KAMC. Growing up in Lubbock, the reason I became a meteorologist was I was terrified of storms. So when there was tornadoes happening and severe weather happening in Lubbock, I'd pull out the old family atlas, because I'm of the age where we still had atlases and no internet. And I would try to track where the tornado was going with John Robinson. So I grew up watching him, and then we moved near the Metroplex. David Finfrock was there, so I watched him all through high school. I've got to meet both of them. One, David Finfrock is an absolute gem of a human being, and a great Twitter follow. You should also follow him.
Yeah.
John Robinson, so that station used to do at Christmas time, if you had a really cool Christmas light display, they would come to your house and they would do the weather. And my dad loved collecting Santa Clauses, to the point that it kind of made me hate Christmas for a little bit for a while. But John came to our house and did the weather from our living room, and that was the first time I was ever on
really
TV
cool.
weather. So they're now part of the Gray family, which is the company that owns KBTX. And we were on a regional weather call, and I was telling that story, and I didn't realize that my box where my camera was covering up John's. And so I told that story, and then I didn't realize he was like sitting in the conversation with us. Those are my two.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm curious what the next generation of forecasters, maybe those who are learning here in Texas A&M classrooms, what that next generation needs to have that maybe everyone up to this point hasn't had. And so I'm talking about something like a perspective, a mindset, a deeper awareness of something. Like, what is it that this next gen needs?
One, the technology is just so much better than it was for even me when I graduated, right? Like the amount of computing power we have has grown exponentially, and we can do better forecasts going in longer distances than what we used to be able to do, right? I think everybody now generally has an idea of the weather, whether it's on your phone, it's on your watch, it's being put to you at a gas station. Like, weather is being given to you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So you should never look at a broadcast as you telling what the weather is going to be tomorrow. Everybody already knows that. They've either watched you or they've seen it. So this next generation gets to utilize their weather nerdiness and the technology. And it's now more of the, why is it happening? How will it impact my day to day more directly? And then I think there's a general curiosity from the public of, what are the uncertainties? Hey, we know it's going to rain this weekend, but we still got to work on the exact when, and will it produce significant weather? And here's why. Here's what the storm's doing. Here's how it could change. That's what the next generation of broadcasters get to do. It's a challenge too, because TV is not the place that everybody goes anymore, right? Yeah. Or like a standard 5, 6, or 10 o'clock newscast is not what people are building their evenings around anymore.
We carry it around in our pockets.
You carry it in your pocket. Again, you know most of what has happened before you get to a newscast. So the job is to give you more information. So their challenge is to continually chase where people are. You know, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter/X. I'm always going to call it Twitter.
Same.
Threads. I love Threads. Not many people use it. We have a podcast now, you know, so cool. You've got to find where the people are, and you got to go to them to give them the information, because in this day and age, information's being thrown at people so much and daily.
Yeah.
Do you think that by teaching at A&M, have you seen, or are you trying to implement climate awareness or climate change awareness to your students that are going to be the future of meteorology?
I think that they have more of an understanding. So when I was in school, we talked about climate, but we didn't really talk a lot about climate change, right? That's just something that this generation has grown up with and they've seen the effects of. So I think they already know it. My main goal when I teach the broadcast course at A&M is the communication aspect. The goal of that job or that class is for them to come in and learn how to do TV weather, stand on a green screen, talk, point, be interesting. But I always tell them, I was like, even if you don't go into broadcast, if you're in the weather community, whatever you do, you're going to have to communicate the weather to somebody, whether it's a private entity, but whether it is the public, whoever it is. So I really work with them on the just communication aspect, because again, the forecast can be right, but if nobody understands it, then what's the point?
That's very important.
Are you up for doing something fun?
Let's do it.
Okay. So
I hate fun, but sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Notoriously an unfun guy.
Exactly.
So here's what we're going to do. You are a ridiculously kind person. It comes across on TV. It's genuine. And I have...
You've already got me in the studio. You don't have to butter me up.
I have taken advantage of your kindness more times than I even thought that I did. And I want to do a dramatic reading from some of the messages that you and I have exchanged. And I can tell you that apparently 2015, I was really needy.
You were.
And I reached out. That. I reached out to you a lot. So this is going to be a dramatic reading of our message exchange from May 25th, 2015. It was a day of intense storms that were sweeping through the state. And I've got our parts marked. And I would really love it if you gave this an over-the-top reading, because I'm going to do that. And Matt Dittman, who is producing this, if you think that any dramatic music needs to be dropped into this, then, so be it.
That would be great.
So here we go. From May 25th, 2015, a day of intense storms sweeping through the state. At 6:58 p.m., this is my message. Dumb question. Am in Sugarland and will be heading home soon. I've seen all the updates. Suggestion on route?
7:18 p.m. Honestly, stay put. Flooding an issue all around, and there is no way to get into the area that doesn't have a big storm to run into.
8:59 p.m. Need you to open a gap for me to make it from the Big Bucky's on 290 to BCS. Please.
9:05 p.m. Heaviest stuff is over Harris County. Light moderate rain left in Waller and coming to an end. If you can get through that, should be good.
10:03 p.m. Just made it home. You are the man. Had 0 issues. All clear. Thank you so much again.
Can we point out an hour passed? He could have died in that hour. And I would have never known.
So here's the thing. I have done this to you multiple times just in that 1 year, but even since then. And
2015 was a wild year.
I realize that you are in the middle of stuff. And I know that because, you roll up the sleeves halfway, and that's an indicator. That's a barometer that things are serious.
We'll come back to that. But yes,
okay.
Keep going.
I was bothering you at an intense time, and you took the time to engage with me like this. And I know it's not just me. I know you are hearing from people either privately or on other social platforms out in the open. And I know you take the time to address people. I don't think that's entirely typical. Talk about your approach to this kind of thing.
That's the job, right? Especially during the bad times. Like, that's the reason that I was there. What's the point of me showing up 3 times on your TV and then leaving you in the lurch for the rest of the time, right? So that's the reason why we cover storms at all times. Look, again, I grew up scared of storms. So that's why I stood until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning talking about storms that weren't even severe. I get that anxiety that people have. You needed to get home. I didn't want you driving in the dark into the middle of a flooded roadway, and then you actually died between 9:05 and 10:03. And then I wouldn't be here on, talking about all this right now. So that's the job. That's the reason I do it. And honestly, for anybody that I'm still here, I'm still a weather nerd, so I'm still going to be looking at the weather. So like, if you find yourself at the Buc-ee's in Waller again, you can still message me and I'll still give you information.
I appreciate that. And by the way, I had a nervous kiddo in the car at that time. Now you're going to circle back to the sleeves.
Okay. So everybody always thinks that when you're on TV, there are some meteorologists that do this as a gauge, but the jacket comes off, that's one level. The sleeves get rolled up, that's another.
Right.
Let me tell you, it's just hot. I don't like wearing a jacket anyway. So like, if I don't have to be inside of a newscast, taking the jacket off.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
The sleeves getting rolled up, it's because it's hot. One time we did severe weather and the AC was out in the studio and it was hot.
Oh, man.
But this year, so someone on Facebook had put on, the Shel scale. And then last severe weather season, I put on my glasses and they're like, his glasses are on. We've never seen this before.
We just went from a watch to a warning.
I'm going blind. I can't see the tiny TV next to me anymore. So that's why I put on my glasses. But it's fun to watch like what people think that those varying levels mean.
So how old are your kids?
That's a great question. Almost 9, 6, and 3.5.
What do they think you do?
Stand on TV and talk about the weather.
Okay. Yeah. All right. They're good with that?
Yeah. They came and watched one of my final broadcasts yesterday, and they instantly were bored. At first, they were like, "Oh, that's cool. What is he pointing at?" And then, like, that was the lux of it. Yeah, I think they understand that I do weather, but that's one of the reasons why too. Just stepping away from TV, I get to spend more time with these kids because I've missed so much of their lives already, and it started hitting me hard when they got older and I left for Christmas because I had to work and I understood it a little bit more. But there was one night that the kids were talking. They were like, "Oh, it's storming. That means Dad's not coming home for dinner."
Oh.
And like, that was just a dagger to the heart. And it was fine. And they get it and they understand. But it's just, I've missed a lot. I love this job so much, but I've missed so much
That'll be great.
of them growing up.
Yeah.
And I look forward to it.
And I have one question that I want to ask.
Okay.
That according to your bio on KBTX, it said that before you retire, you want to have the opportunity to fly through the eye of a hurricane. Have you done that?
Now. No. So like, you can do that as as journalists, you can get on the list with NOAA. And it's kind of wild because they're like, "Hey, we're leaving from Biloxi at this time. You have to be here or you're not getting on the flight." And you're not guaranteed to be taken back to Biloxi. You may be dropped back off in like New Orleans or Houston or somewhere. I don't know that I'll ever get the opportunity now. And honestly, I'm not really good with turbulence. I flew out of Houston a couple of weeks ago when we had big storms and it was not enjoyable. But if they ever get the nod, I'll strap in. I'll do it.
That'll be fun.
Storm Chaser is really cool or really dumb?
The show?
No,
Or just people?
no, just people in general. Because
It depends which one you're talking
to
about.
me, after the movie Twister came out in the 90s, this became a thing.
Right. I wanted to be a storm. That's what my original goal was, to become a storm chaser.
Okay.
And then I got to do it in school. And then I realized like there was no money, but then YouTube became a thing and all of a sudden there was money in it. No, they are very helpful. They help us when it comes to being the eyes on the ground. There are some who don't do it very smartly and get a little too close. But for the most part, they're fantastic attribution to the weather community.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we're winding down our time here, explain again where you're going to be going. And by the way, does that mean you stay in this community
Correct.
or you
so
move?
I get to do it from here. That was one of the big draws of this job is I get to do it remotely. So my studio that I had set up after COVID was in a closet. So I just removed the TV camera and the large TV, and now I get to work literally in a closet. That is where my home office is going to be. But I'll be remote, so I'll be in Bryan College Station, and I'm going to get the opportunity to talk again to meteorologists and to journalists and to trusted messengers across the country, across the globe. And I'm here to help. I want us all to talk better and understand things better and just make it a better world for my kids, for your kids and their kids and everybody after that.
And the nonprofit is called?
Climate Central. ClimateCentral.org if you want to check out their work.
Okay. And listen, on behalf of, really just me, I can only speak for me, but I think I speak on behalf of a whole lot of folks. Thank you for everything you have done to help this community during difficult times, difficult moments. I mean, we really do appreciate it. And especially thank you for helping me in 2015 when I'm stuck at a Buc-ee's.
Didn't even bring me beaver nuggets.
No, I didn't, but I owe you beaver nuggets. I now know that I owe you beaver nuggets. But seriously, thank you for doing a lot of selfless work. I know you got paid for it, but thanks for doing a lot of selfless work.
I mean, just to close it out, I want to say, sure. But again, that was the job, and I was happy to do it because I would be looking at it anyway. But thank you to the Brazos Valley for trusting me for as long as they did, for the conversations, and just for keeping up with me and, I guess, putting up with me over 15 years.
Now we got to do that with Max Crawford.
Yeah, sorry.
Shel Winkley, national treasure. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
And Rochelle Martins, thanks for sitting in. This was great.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of fun. It was really nice talking to you guys.
We'll have to do that again. Brazos Matters is a production of Aggieland's Public Radio, 90.9 KAMU-FM, a member of Texas A&M University's Division of Marketing and Communications. Our show is engineered and edited by Matt Dittman. Learn more about us and check out all the Brazos Matters archives at kamu.tamu.edu/radio or on the NPR app, YouTube, or on your favorite podcast platform. You can find our shows all over the place. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook and X and Instagram. I'm Jay Sokol. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.